Good evening, dear participants, and good morning, dear speakers.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Dear participants, if you would like to ask questions or use your audio or video during the webinar, you are welcome. And also, I would like to ask your permission to record this webinar so that you can share it with your colleagues who are not able to attend today. And I would like to remind you that please contact Slava during this webinar. Write to her personally in the chat your name and your email so that we can issue some certificates about your participation in this webinar. And let me introduce our speakers today. So we have webinar 5. And the topic of the webinar is free digital resources for language instructions. And Stephanie and Christopher are going to speak about InterCom and Games2Teach. Stephanie Knight holds a master's degree in Latin American Studies from the University of New Mexico. And before joining CASEL's Center of Applied Linguistics, Center of Applied Second Language Linguistics in 2015, Stephanie taught all levels of Spanish to students in grades from 5th to 16th and served as an international baccalaureate diploma program coordinator at a high school in Nashville, Tennessee. And throughout her career, she has been motivated by increasing educational success for underrepresented populations of students in advanced secondary contexts and post-secondary contexts. Also, Stephanie has presented nationally and internationally on best practices for planning, instruction, professional collaboration, and intentional incorporation of digital tools in the world language classroom. And at CASELS, she explores her passion through the development of curricula and pedagogical supports, seeking to harness the power of digital tools to promote language acquisition and the retention of learners in language coursework. And we have a second speaker today, Christopher Deradix, also holds master's degree in liberal arts from St. John's College and MA in linguistics with a language teaching specialization from the University of Oregon. And before joining CASELS in 2016, Christopher worked with autistic students in a regional learning center at a public middle school. Christopher's work focuses creating language curriculum that helps students to develop a sense of self through a reflective interaction with their world inside and outside the classroom. Also, Christopher has presented nationally on the connection between language learning and personal development. And CASELS, his passion is focused on developing language strategies curricula which support relationship development and personal reflection. Thank you very much, Christopher and Stephanie, that you agreed to participate in our webinar today. And now I will give the floor to you. And dear participants, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We can give you some special time for asking questions, or you can write your questions in the chat. And I really would encourage you to use audio and video to ask questions. Okay?
Sounds great. Thank you, Yelena. It's so nice to see everybody today. I'm going to get us started just really quickly to give you a quick introduction to kind of our center and what we're about. So as was already mentioned, we're going to talk about some free tools that are available to you through our center. And before Christopher gets started talking about InterCom, I wanted to share with you our core values at CASELS. These core values, I think, are very important to these projects in particular because they really serve as the whole reason that the projects exist. The first of our values is that everybody has the ability to learn a second language and should be provided with that opportunity. So we seek to reach out to learners who we realize are not having their needs met, and also to educators. And these projects are really focused on innovative ways of delivering tools to people who need them at a low cost. Meaningful communication is the purpose of language learning. We use these projects that we'll talk to you about today to really take language learning beyond content acquisition. To us, language learning is not just about learning grammar and vocabulary, but it's about actually using language when and how you would use it in the real world. And these projects are a vehicle to promote that. And lastly, teachers and learners play a vital role in language learning. They are the reason we exist. We are here for teachers and learners completely. Our goal is always to listen to the needs that people have and try to meet those needs as best we can with innovative practices. So that is just a quick introduction to us, and I will give Christopher the floor so he can tell you about InterCom.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Let's see if I can get my video on here. There we go. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Yelena, for the introduction. Thank you for all the participants for joining us. Can everyone see me? I'm still seeing Stephanie here.
Christopher, we can see you, but I have very low sound. What about other participants? Do you hear Christopher very well?
Let me plug my microphone in.
Okay.
Is this better?
Yes, this is much better. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, let's jump in. Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me take over the screen here. Okay, so I'm going to be presenting about InterCom. And plain and simple, InterCom is a weekly, curated, customizable professional development newsletter. It comes as an email into your inbox every week on Monday morning, and it's full of content that you decide. It comes with content that you have told it, I want these topics to come, and we'll jump into that in a little bit. Just a real quick overview of the topics we're going to cover. We're going to ask, who is it for? What does each issue include? What are some commonly covered topics in InterCom? We're going to take a look at it in terms of the format and how it's delivered. We're going to hear some feedback from people about what they think about it. We're going to show you some different ways that you can use it, as well as why it's valuable, and then finally where you can sign up. So who is it for? InterCom is created for K through 12 language teachers, as well as post-secondary language teachers. It's also for language program administrators, and maybe it's a stretch, but also we have some interest in shaping the kind of the direction of the field. So we're interested in addressing needs of language policymakers and SLA researchers as well. I have a little interactive piece here that I'd like to read to you. One of these scripts that helps helps you understand a scenario of the different kinds of people that InterCom, different kinds of needs that it addresses for different contexts. And I'm wondering if we could take a quick little survey and see which of these scripts we should go through. I'd just like to go through one of them. It's going to take a minute to go through. So how can we get some feedback here on which of these topics we'd like to address?
So, dear participants, you are welcome to reply. So would you like to hear about K-12 teachers or post-secondary? Do we have any administrators here?
I'm not able to see the chat going through, so I'm just going to take a cue from you, Yelena, whichever one.
So there is nothing in the chat yet.
Okay.
As far from my experience, I think we mostly have school teachers,
okay,
and some of them are university teachers. So K-12 teachers, please, Lenora.
Okay, let's jump in here. So this is a script that we've created for just kind of for our general audience, to target K through 12 teachers, to show them here's the value of InterCom. So here's a little story to help contextualize how this newsletter can be useful for you. So as a teacher, it can be difficult to find quality classroom ready resources. So let's take Eric as an example, a busy K through 12 teacher. He found a great solution to the problem of finding classroom ready resources when he subscribed to the weekly InterCom newsletter. Eric loves the weekly research-based resources and ideas based on his customized subscription preferences. Whenever Eric has a chance, he reads the short Topic of the Week article by language education experts, and he often uses InterCom's classroom-ready activity of the week because the activities make sense and are easy to use. When he has time, Eric scans the curated third-party resources for the information that interests him most. So this is a scenario of how potentially a K through 12 teacher could benefit from InterCom. So let's take a closer look here. I've mentioned in that script some of the features that InterCom includes, but we'll take a closer look at them here. Each issue of InterCom covers a brief explanation of a key language pedagogy topic in the topic of the week, which is what TOW stands for, and we'll be seeing that a bit more throughout the presentation. Each issue also includes a related classroom activity designed for immediate use, which is called the activity of the week, and we refer to that as AOW, and you'll see some more of those down the road here in a second. Each issue also includes a spotlight on the Language Resource Center, where Stephanie and I work, called Castles. Also, each issue includes a curated collection of publications, language-specific resources, and professional development opportunities. Okay, let's see here. So in terms of the topics that we cover on a regular basis, these are some examples. We deal a lot with strategies instruction. We also have some issues covering memory and learning. We deal a lot with pragmatics, as well as occasional newsletters on assessment. And then, of course, language development in the 4 core skills. And then also an example of peer review within the language classroom. And this is I'm going to click on this link here, and this will take us to the actual article. This is not within the journal, the newsletter format. It's just to show the content. So this is the kind of content that we're delivering each week. The title of this article was Developing Self-Evaluation Skills for Writing Through Peer Review. It has a little summary introduction, and then some key points, discuss the benefits and concerns about peer review, practice giving feedback, do peer review, evaluate papers, and then a little follow-up to close it. Each week, the InterCom has, like I said, a topic of the week, but then there's also an activity that corresponds with it. So let me show you the corresponding activity for that topic, which is here. Same topic, reflecting on learners' own writing skills through peer evaluation. But now here's a ready-to-use activity with the objectives set out. Oops, the mode is here. It shows you the materials, and these links are active. That directs you to those links and gives you those resources. And then it gives you a step-by-step procedure of how to use this activity in your class that's based on the topic of the week that we just looked at a moment ago. So these are the common features that are included in every InterCom newsletter. And then, so let's take a look at what it looks like. Here's the most recent edition that came to my email inbox. This week's topic was using online media to increase pragmatic competence. And I'd just like to point out briefly, this is a total aside, but if anyone's interested in doing additional education in language pedagogy or language teaching, this gentleman who wrote this this article for us is he's a fellow at our center, and he is he's receiving a fellowship to do a language teaching specialization master's program at the U of O, and his work at our center is actually funding his education, his master's degree. And he got to write this piece as a part of that work he's doing with us. So if anyone's interested in a master's degree, we have a language teaching program here at the university that's connected with our center, and there are some opportunities for continuing education there. So just a plug. But here's the first page, the header, a little navigation section, the topic of the week, additional navigation section on the second screen. This would just be scrolling on my web on my email, but rather here I took screenshots so it's segmented. But then here you can see the activity of the week that goes with the topic of the week. Here's the spotlight. And then the customized content that we described before. Professional development based on selections that I made. Publications that are given to me based on the selections that I made when I signed up for InterCom. Additional resources available here. And then here you can see, this is the end of the email. This is the different language strands that I signed up for, ESL bilingual, German, Spanish. That's how InterCom knows which content to deliver to me. The content areas I selected, and I'm sure everybody would, in the group here, would choose a different set of selections, which would give them different content when they get the newsletter. So what do people say about it? Well, we have a lot of feedback over the years from people saying that they really appreciate the work that we're doing. And I'll just read this most recent comment that we received. InterCom is a wonderful resource. It has invigorated my teaching in many ways, and I just recommend it to my graduate TESOL students as we start the semester. People who are familiar with the work of Castles, the center where Stephanie and I work, oftentimes the reason that they're familiar with our center is because of InterCom. So people really appreciate it, and they find it to be a valuable resource. How can you use it? It's really important to us to make it really convenient. Convenient is the key word. We know that practicing teachers are busy people. They care about their work, and it's a complex job, so we want to make it as easy as possible. So in addition to being able to read it whenever you'd like I mentioned before, you can also customize the content to your interests. Some other possible avenues for using InterCom would be, we have a brochure that shows you how to use InterCom in a methods course. So if you're teaching a methods course, we have a resource for you that would allow you to access the information in InterCom in a way that, that would support language teacher training. You could also use InterCom to start some interaction with colleagues. A really common example that we hear at our center is that people use it potentially in a faculty meeting where there's a topic that they are interested in discussing with their colleagues. They pull an article out of InterCom and bring it to the discussion to say, hey, this is something I'd like to discuss with you, and here's an article that can get us going. Another thing that struck me as interesting as I was reading through the comments was that another way people use it is that they will read the activity of the week and then the topic of the week. And if it's a topic they're not familiar with, reading the abstract kind of more kind of broad explanation of a topic, and then looking at how it's applied specifically within the activity, helps people develop practical knowledge of more contemporary approaches to language pedagogy. So again, to be clear, you can print out the activity on the activity of the week. It's just a paper handout that you can print out, and it's really easy to use, especially once you've read the topic of the week, which deals with the same topic in a kind of more abstract or higher level kind of treatment. So it's valuable because essentially it's a quality resource that is full of curated language instruction resources. And the key word here that we hear from our from the people who receive InterCom is that they feel like the sources that they're getting the information from, they can really trust. Any link that you click on or any information that comes to you is, you know, it's going to be research-based and something that's going to be worthwhile and worth your time. And then, like I said earlier, it's convenient. So we're looking for helping people develop professionally, but without a ton of extra work or stress. So we think of it as useful for professional development on the go. And here's another quote just to kind of bring home the value of InterCom. Someone says, "I receive your emails with anticipation every week and find them quite useful," from a classroom teacher. So then the last question, where can I sign up? It's very simple. You can just go to casselsintercom.uoregon.edu, and let's jump over there real quick. You're going to see this homepage, and it's going to share a lot of the same information I just described to you. And then if you hit the subscribe now button, it will take you to the subscription form, fill out your name and address, and then you can decide which languages would you like to get information about, which level is appropriate for you and your learners, and then which content areas are you most interested in, and then sign up. So that is the entirety of what I have to share about InterCom, and I'm wondering if it makes sense to open up for questions now or to hold off questions until after Stephanie presents.
I think it's good to have questions now.
Okay, yeah, let's go for it.
Mm-hmm. So I will wait for some questions from the participants, and I also have some questions.
Perfect.
Okay, so dear participants, you're welcome to write your questions in the chat or just take a microphone, unmute your microphone and speak. Christopher, I have a question about settings. So I signed up for InterCom, I think in September or October, but I didn't know that I can choose the options. So how do I change my settings so that maybe I think I'm missing some topics that also will be interesting for me?
That's a really great question. I think that the first thing that you should try would be to simply sign up again and put in new settings.
Okay.
And yeah, that should cancel out the old settings and put in the new ones. Yeah.
And I really want to share with you that I signed up for that and I receive email, and I'm always looking forward to reading it and exploring it. And maybe when I go back, I will use it with my students.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry?
Yeah, it is. It's an incredible resource. What's interesting about it, like I mentioned, we cover all of these different topics in the topic of the week and the activity of the week. But below that, that's the first section in the newsletter. But below that, all of that customizable content, even as somebody in the language, business, essentially coming across so many resources every day, whenever InterCom comes by and I see all of those resources, I'm just amazed how much material is there and how good it is. It's just every time I feel like I want to keep scrolling through and clicking more and more, and it's almost like too much information. It's too helpful.
Yes. So there is a question from, can anybody send a link? So here is a link.
Oh, yeah.
And also After the webinar, we always send you post-webinar email asking you for feedback, and also we will include all of the information from our speakers. Is it possible, another question, is it possible to get access to scientific research articles in this link on the formation of students' creativity in the schools? I mean, are there available articles?
That's a really great question related to creativity specifically. Not to my knowledge, but let me look, and I will reply to Yelena, and we can see if we can forward some articles about that.
Okay, I think so. Also, our post-webinar email has a link to feedback form, and our participants can write you some questions. Perfect. And I will make sure we will have follow-up with them. So Anna is asking, is that a free resource?
Yes, of course, it's a free resource. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely free.
So if there are no questions from the participants, shall we move on the next part of the webinar? You mentioned other languages, Spanish as well.
Yes, absolutely. Spanish is one of the languages addressed within the resources, for sure.
And how many languages are there available?
Well, let's take a look here. If I share my screen again. There it is. How many languages are available? So here are the language choices. Let's remove these so we don't get confused, and we can see them all. So here they are. German, French, Indigenous, Japanese, Middle Eastern, other European, South Asian, Southeast Asian, Spanish, we missed some at the top. American Sign Language, African languages, Arabic, Central Asian, Chinese, Classical, and then here we are again. So quite a few.
Okay, and we have two more questions. Are there any methods or ways to assess the learners?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the that's certainly one of the central topics that we cover in it. Yeah, and the second question was,
should you have internet access in order to use games?
I think that we should let Stephanie ask that question, because the games is probably going to have more to do with her presentation. But okay. But I'll say, in terms of InterCom, you need internet access to get the email, and you need internet access to click on any of the links. But once you have the email, or once you've clicked on the link, you shouldn't need to be on the internet any longer in order to read through them, just like regular email.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Christopher and Yelena. I will jump on to talk to you about our other resource now, Games2Teach. So let me share my screen again. We'll turn on my video as well. And, well, here we go. And I'll put it in presentation mode. So the project I will talk to you about is Games2Teach, and I will give you the URL for Games2Teach at the end of this presentation. And really what we look at with this particular resource is digital games and how we can use them as a vehicle for promoting literacy in world languages. These games are often downloadable, so you would not need internet access, but there are some that would require internet access because they're only available online or things along those lines. So just to give you a quick overview of what I hope to accomplish in the next few minutes with you all is that I want you to be able to understand how good teaching and good games are actually related. That I want you to identify at least one approach for incorporating games in the classroom, and then to identify some resources that can help you use games in the classroom for learning. So just a quick overview, what is Games2Teach? It's a site dedicated to professional development. The site has a blog so you can learn about new games and our reviews of them. It also connects you with research that's available for free, and it provides a series of free classroom resources. So we've picked a series of games, and for most of the games we have some novice activities for your learners who are just starting out, some activities for your intermediate learners, and then some activities for your advanced learners as well. So you could use the same game, but have different outcomes depending on your students. So let's take a tour. Let's see, hopefully, I bet I need to stop my share and share my new screen. I just want to give you a quick overview of the website. So here it is, Games2Teach, 2 being the numeral 2, .uoregon.edu. When you sign in, you see this homepage. Learn can take you to our blog where you can see our post. This most recent one is about iCivics and how it can be used for curriculum development. Then we have a game called Wheels of Aurelia and a game overview there. So a variety of sources there. The About Us and Contact Us are just so you can get an idea of who we are. Contact Us is if you need to email any questions or if you want to communicate outside of the blog, you can. On the blog, you can actually also post comments if you want. And our site administrator reviews those comments and responds. Download is my favorite section though. So under download, you can find classroom activities. And this, what you do is you just click the ones that you want to download that seem interesting to you. So the languages we list are all of the languages in which these games can be played. We made all of the activities in English, and so they will have to be adapted to your language. But you can just click whichever ones you want and then put your name and your email, hit submit request, and they will download for you automatically. So you'll be able to use them that day or adapt them whatever way you like. Here you see the game evaluation. So these are just our reviews of some commercially available games. Professional development. This brings you to some professional development manuals created by our center's director, Julie Sykes and Jonathan Reinhardt. They wrote a book together about using games in the classroom, and these can give you some more tips about practical use. And then the last are the publications. So this is actual just research related to using games in the classroom that you can download and take with you. And then explore, this part you can just search games that we have logged in this site. The most common place to visit though is the download section. So let me stop my share there quickly and go back to my presentation. So how do we use Games2Teach? It's a resource, but as I showed, there's a lot there, so it can be a little overwhelming. So before we dive into that, I just wanted to give you an idea of why games are so intriguing to us and why we like to use them. And it's essentially that they can transform learning in the classroom. They are fun, they are engaging, but that's not why we use them. Because they are transformational, they become those things. But they really give students a vehicle to experience the world through simulations in ways that they wouldn't be able to do it. With a game, they might build a whole city, and if they're not in city planning, it's not something they'd actually do, but they have the experience of building a city to use in your classroom when you guys talk about neighborhoods and things along those lines. Or they might, one of the games we feature is called This War of Mine, and they might actually have to survive a civil war as a civilian, which is a situation we hope that they don't have to actually experience. But using the game, they're able to get a common experience that all your students share that they can use to further classroom exploration and understanding of language. Good games give really good feedback, and good teachers give really good feedback, which is really neat synergy that we see. When we're not playing games, we see feedback all the time in the classroom with rubrics, any sort of grading that we do, choral responses. So when I ask a question and have the whole class respond. Fist to five, which is if I just ask my students essentially, like, how are you feeling about this? And if they give me, they can hold their hand above their head. Fist means they don't understand anything. And then they can show me any number of numbers, fingers up to 5. And 5 is they understand everything. An exit ticket. So this is stuff we do all the time to get feedback in the classroom. But games give us good feedback too. Mario is a pretty common game, but if you are playing Mario and you jump into the lava, you very quickly realize when Mario dies and has to start the level over that you can't jump into the lava anymore, right? You get some immediate feedback that can inform your future actions. Games also facilitate interaction. We see this a lot in massively multiplayer online games. For example, World of Warcraft or any other game where there are quests and you have to collaborate with people around the world. My son uses a different game, Minecraft, to collaborate with his friends, and they build whole cities together and fight zombies together. And it's a really cool platform because it connects people that aren't in the same space when we use digital games. But outside of games, we also do a lot of interaction in the classroom, right? We might do think, pair, share, where I have my students think about something, meet up and share it out loud. We might do gallery walks where we walk around the classroom and talk about different images that are posted at different parts of the classroom. We see great interaction in great classrooms, and games just give us another platform to have that interaction. We also see great use of context in language classrooms that are successful. We understand that, for example, greeting your best friend is different than greeting your grandmother, that you use different language to do greetings in both of those contexts. And games give us a really specific context in which we're interacting. And that actually helps the students understand language better. They see where words are used and how words are used. So they're able to understand them on a deeper level than if we just give them a vocabulary list. Games also involve a lot of goal orientation, and most good classrooms do too. Most good classrooms start off with helping students understand what they should be learning for the day. In games, we see this all the time. There's some sort of objective that people are trying to achieve at the end of it. So by giving my students a game with an objective, I'm, again, driving their learning in some shape, form, or fashion. And lastly, motivation. Games increase motivation because when students find them to be relevant. So we work really hard at Castles to pick games that students will connect to in some way so that they are motivated to learn the language within the game. So now I'm gonna have to change my screen one more time and give you a quick, we're gonna play a game. But for this, I will need your help. So if you will, it'll be easier since I have to share my screen if you'll unmute yourself. But Yelena, you feel free to tell me what people are answering if they feel more comfortable chatting. But this game essentially is an adventure game, and you have to choose what happens, you have to choose from a variety of actions before you take your next step. So
let me just give a tip how to unmute the microphones in case some participants are not sure how to do it. So at the bottom on the left, you have a microphone and it is crossed out with a red line. So you just press it and then you can unmute yourself. If you don't want, you don't use the video. Yeah, now I hear some participants unmuting their microphones. So we are ready. Stephanie, what shall we do?
Okay, great. I'm going to share the screen. Is everyone able to see a door in a...
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so loud knocking interrupts your afternoon nap. What do you do? We have 3 options. Check your cell phone, answer the door, or go back to sleep.
Answer the door.
Okay,
Answer the door,
answer the door.
Answer the
I'm
door.
Jeremy from down the hall. We don't have much time. They're evacuating this building and asked me to tell everyone on the floor. A deadly flu has swept over the city. You don't have much time to collect everything you need. No, I don't know much more than that, but we have to go. I'll try to explain later. Are you ready? So we have 3 options.
Hold on. Hold on, the first option. Hold on.
Hold on. Okay, Jeremy says, but hurry. So now you have 2 options. Take 5 minutes to get water and photos, or take 10 minutes to pack a suitcase and backpack.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Oh, we collected photos and water.
All right.
And Jeremy says, thanks for hurrying. Before she left, the resident advisor gave me some stuff. I can't possibly carry it all. What do you want? We can take a graphic novel or a solar cell phone charger.
Solar cell phone charger.
All right. We only have a little bit of time to gather what we need, and I have to get my own thing together too. The RA did tell me that other items we need are all over. Look at this map. There are different items in each location. Think of what you want to bring with you, and you can only take 10 things. Choose wisely. We already have 3 things, so we'll get started. We're preparing to evacuate the city. We're going to select items on the map. So the map is actually in Oregon. If we were in Oregon, all of us together, we could actually play this game outside, and you have to go to the different places the items are located. But this is a version that allows us to play even if we're not in Oregon. So let me zoom in. And we can pick 7 more items. So here are our choices.
Well, first aid kit. Absolutely.
First aid kit.
Flashlight and mattress.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Food. Take food.
Knife.
Food. Food. Food.
I love
Please
the
take food.
enthusiasm. Excellent.
Yeah, thanks.
Knife. Water.
We have water already.
But we can always get more. So we can get more food and more water.
Okay.
More food, more water.
Okay. Get more water. Anything else we want to get?
Medicine.
More food.
Oh, we have 10 items, so we're out.
Just food.
All right, so we just realized we left our cell phone in the apartment. We turn around to get it, but we see hazmat teams beginning to pour into the building. You look at the solar cell phone charger you just got from Jeremy and throw it away. If you had only grabbed your cell phone.
Oh, damn it.
Now we've unlocked day 2. So we'll go to day 2 to continue. We've lost 1 food because now it's been a day. And then
Oh, no. That's why I told you to take more food.
I know, I'm sorry.
I know you should. Yeah, the more food we have, the longer we can live.
It's true. It's true. So we survived the night. We're walking along Peace Trail trying to head out of the city. We notice a duffel bag. Do we open it? Yes or no?
Sure. What if there's food? And the first aid kit. You've seen water.
Yeah, water, batteries, and first aid kit.
Yeah.
Then we find a family of 4. We overhear them talking about being hungry. The youngest appears to have a broken arm. We want to help, but we're waiting. What do we do?
We'll just leave as quickly as possible.
Leave it.
Leave and take all the food with you.
All right.
Oh, eat them. Eat them. Is it possible to eat them?
No, it is not.
Damn it.
You continue walking, but wonder if we made the right decision. Lost in thought, we focus on our surroundings. A group of bandits dart out from behind some underbrush.
We have a knife.
Oh, but we have a knife to protect ourselves. Food. We can just give them food. Here you go, some food.
We managed to drag ourselves a few feet ahead, hide in some bushes, and fall asleep. Cold, lonely, and regretful. We wish we had helped the family. After all, the bandits took everything we had away. Hopefully, it turns out okay. Then we unlock year 1, and we can continue playing. Oh, we gained hazelnuts. You find out.
Oh, yeah, food, again.
We know how to find hazelnuts, but we did lose our.
I'm just really hungry.
So, that is just to give you, we don't have enough time to play the whole game, unfortunately. It is
Oh no. Can I play it? Can I play it after this meeting?
can. I'll tell you how to download it. That's all.
All right. Yeah, tell us how to download it. I'm sure my students will love it.
I will. So
Thank you, Stephanie. That's amazing.
you're so welcome. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, and I just wish there were more food.
There are more opportunities. If you can survive year one, you can go to year
All
two.
right.
And if you,
You
survive
see, that's the key is the food in the language. That's what I tell my students.
I love that. I love
All
that.
right.
Perfect. Awesome. So I will show you how to download that. But let me go back to this and kind of talk through that game. Now that you have an idea of how that game is, this is a game we actually developed in our center a couple of years ago. I want to go through a possible classroom activity. So this one is related just to vocabulary. So as the learners play, you have them start documenting the vocabulary that's related to illness and survival, or any other topic you want. But for this game, the most vocabulary is related to illness or survival. As a class, they start to review the salient words and they make word maps. So they start to make semantic maps, so draw lines so they can connect how the words connect to each other, group the words based on some category. They can start to build a better foundation for understanding the vocabulary. You can play Jeopardy to identify the vocabulary, and I have a template that I can show you. And then the last thing for vocab is you can then play headbands to practice circumlocution. So what headbands is, and this is an analog game, one that you don't have to have any access online, but you basically get a card taped to your head, and you can't see the card, and the people around you try to describe the word for you so that you can guess what it means, which is a really fun way to get your students used to circumlocuting and talking about the words that they can't remember. And so here is the Jeopardy template. So you see we have, like, for anyone who has this, a little cut is easy to stitch up, and the answer is first aid kit. And they can go through and play this Jeopardy. So essentially they get to choose a category and the amount of money or the amount of points that the category is worth, and then you ask them the question. If they answer correctly, they get to go again, or it goes back to the other group. So some other possible activities that might go with this game, you would have learners predict what might happen before they play the game. So you tell them the narrative, which is a flu has hit and is spreading throughout the world. There's a high fatality rate of 90%. And you have them predict what might happen during gameplay. And then as they play, they can verify their predictions. And that helps actually prime them to understand the language that they're seeing if they predict it ahead of time. You can have them write their own narratives. So this game actually goes from day 1 to day 2 to year 1 to year 2, and then skips from year 2 to year 5. So you could have them make up stories for what happens in between year 2 and year 5, or year 1, the days you see in year 1, to write a story about a day you don't see happening in year 1. You can have them do extended research. So they can look at other global pandemics that have hit. So they could look at something, 2009, I believe it was, the H1N1 was the swine flu was very prominent in the news. They can look at any sort of highly contagious disease. They could look at just the regular flu, or they could even go back in history and research the Black Plague or anything along those lines. You could also use this game to discuss decision making, right? You guys were telling me what to do, but what if we had all really disagreed on what to do? I can teach my students how to have those disagreements. And as they play the game, they practice those strategies on how to disagree or to ask for clarification. So this is just an example of the game narrative. We did highlight some parts of the game, highlight some text, so you could actually do that yourself, or you can use the ones that we have provided on the Games2Teach website, where you can use these paragraphs to help students understand, use them as reading comprehension on top of gameplay and the other ideas that I've already shared. And really, the sky is the limit. what I've shared with you right here is called the Framework for Game Enhanced Material Development, developed by Julie Sykes, our director, and John Reinhardt again, who is our collaborator on the Games2Teach website. And what they have is essentially, if you want to use a game in your classroom, they advocate that it occur in 3 phases. The first is the exploratory phase. So within the game, that's the part that's inside the red circle and yellow. You're supposed to notice and collect something that's going on in the game. So in one of the activities I described, the students could be making a vocab list based on what they're seeing in the game, right? They could be taking notes about what happens so that they can use that information for a later activity. And then outside, you're just playing and observing the game. You're having fun. This is when you're kind of understanding and learning and figuring out how to win. The next step is to examine. And I'm sorry, I think I said within the game is on the inside of the circle. That's within the classroom is inside of the circle. Outside of it is within the game itself. So experiencing game discourses would happen. So this is where I'm starting to see how language is used in the game. I'm starting to examine it. And in the classroom, the teacher is there to help me analyze the language that I see. So this might be related to language pragmatics, or essentially how people say what they mean to say. And so I might be looking at how people apologize within a game, or how people give orders in a game. In my classroom, I can use the game text to really help students understand how to form those types of sentences and phrases. And then the next step is extend. So as you're playing the game, this is when you're really getting into it. This is where you're going from day 2 to year 1 and year 1 to year 5. And in class, this is where we start to create our own language. So we might write an extension activity that I already mentioned, like write the story of what happened on a day we didn't get to play. Or we might actually simulate an interaction. So you may find out in the game that when the bandits attack, maybe I have the students write the conversation or do a role play of what that language may have looked like. So we have kind of, and then that can lead us to more exploration. Maybe when the students are extending, they have another question and they want to go play the game some more so that they can answer it or find new games to play. To summarize, then, I know we're running out of time. We really believe in games because we believe in transformational learning. We want to use games to take learning to another level, not just use games to make our students excited. When we give them games to give them experiences that promote their learning, the motivation takes care of itself. We don't have to use the game so that they want to learn. They're learning with the game. Good games for learning embed high quality teaching practices. Some games that aren't good for learning, Candy Crush used to be pretty popular, but the games that don't actually give you a lot of feedback, that don't involve collaboration, that don't involve high levels of motivation, those games are not the games that we look at using in the classroom. We need high quality games that involve all of these good practices, that have clear goals, right? That have good feedback that happens either from the people I'm interacting with within the game or outside of the game. And lastly, games are alternative texts. So when people struggle to use games, I often tell them to find a game that's related to a resource that they are a topic that they're interested in discussing. And I'll show you a website you can look at for that in just a second. But I often tell them to think, if they're interested, for example, in studying pandemics and health, there are a couple games. This game I just showed you, which is called EcoPod Survival. There's another game called Plague Inc. And I tell them, instead of printing out an article and having a student read about a plague that has spread somewhere, have them play it and then break down that conversation. So use the game in place of the article sometimes. It gives them the same it gives them actually a more personal level of understanding. It also helps them understand why their language class is important and how it might relate to their other subject areas, because most of the games that we feature were not designed specifically for learning language. We just see a huge potential in them to help facilitate language learning. So they can actually see cool ways why learning English matters in their chemistry class or things along those lines. So some recommended resources. Here's the Games2Teach website. I would actually, this will take you to the website on our webpage, our home webpage for Castles. But if you go, and I'll type it in the chat box so you can see it, to games2teach.uoregon.edu, that will bring you directly to the blog that I showed you. This other website that I want to show you, sorry, let me escape here, is Games for Change. Games for Change is one of my favorite websites. It is a website that offers a lot of commercial games, most of which are free or very, very low cost. They are all digital, but they are categorized by different topics related to social justice. So those topics might be related to migration patterns within humans, so different games about people crossing borders and things along those lines are featured. They might relate to environmental concerns, health concerns, any topics along really social justice spectrum are featured there. And so you can find them, and sometimes you have to dig for what language those games are available in a bit, but they are all available in English that they feature. And then a series a little bit and more usually. And so that is a quick overview of games. What questions do you have for me?
Stephanie, I see one question. How many topics of game are there?
So within our Games2Teach website, we feature, let me go here. I don't want to give you the wrong number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 10 different games that we feature a series of activities for. Those topics are actually quite broad. For example, one game is SimCity Build It, which is a game where you actually build a city. You're the mayor of the city and you have to decide how much money to put into different infrastructure and things along those lines. That game you could use for planning, you could use for finance, you could use for city exploration. We have a lot of activities where you actually use it to compare the city that you built to the city that you lived in and decide which one you like more. So there are a lot of ways to use some of the games. Plague Inc. is about basically you are trying to develop a plague that can adapt to all climates. So you actually mutate the plague as you go. It was developed for STEM students, but the world starts to fight back. So people start to do more research and things along those lines. So it's a kind of cool game for exploring international trade. Actually, you see how the plague gets from place to place, transnational migration. Ingress is a game that's place-based. Pokemon Go was actually developed by the same group. And you go around to your community, and this is a really good game for getting to know your community and different historical landmarks, because all of the landmarks are a place you have to visit in the game to win. Safari Tales, this one's actually for younger learners, so elementary school learners. That game is, you play as an animal and you have different quests that you play, and it is for very young kids, and at the end of each day, your experience and gameplay is turned into a book, and you get to read the book that was created. This War of Mine is about a civil war breaking out in your country, and you're trying to survive it. We use the game to explore issues related to refugee crises around the world, and also to explore how language changes when we're in a situation in which we're fearful and when we're in a situation that's nice and easy. We also have Happy Harvest Chinese, which is using you basically are a farmer. Gardenscapes is another game where you're basically building a mansion and you're making it nicer. So yeah, a plethora of activities there. And then Games for Change can give you access to a whole lot more.
Okay, so we have a question and a comment from Anna.
Right. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak because I'm not a really fast typer. Hi, my name is Anna, and thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. Stephanie, I'd like to comment on what you're presenting to us. It's just about 2 days ago, I visited a conference in Russian Federation, and the gamification, as they call it, is a very cool trend right now. There is an organization called StudyCraft, and they talk about the value of gamification. They develop their own games in English and so on. So I became interested in this topic, and I had such high hopes. I wanted to listen to what they had to say, but what happened during the presentation and the demonstration was that they failed to explain the value of the games. So they were not even close to what you were just telling us. They failed to explain the value of feedback. And basically what they talked about, that games are fun, games are cool, buy our games. And the games that they have developed are very different from what you have demonstrated and what you have mentioned. They are basically developing all sorts of card games, reinventing the wheel, because these are not really games but activities. However, they try to position and present them as games. So this is like a cool, super cool trend of gamification, and I'm sure that researchers or whoever they are, like just developers from Russia, would be really interested in learning about your product. You have a wonderful project. Thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, well, thank you for such kind words. And it's interesting, gamification particularly is slightly different. What I was really, at least in our context at Castles, we look at gamification of learning as classrooms that are very similar to one my son was in. And so each of their learning teams had names, and they could score certain points. And by the end of the year, they could cash in those points to get, you know, a series of toys and all of these things. So his classroom was very gamified, and they did play games as part of it. So we focus a lot in our center instead on game enhanced learning. So how you use the games to promote learning instead of turning learning into a game, which is a distinction, certainly, where, you know, and there's research to support gamification. There's some research that's skeptical still of it. And gamification is, I mean, for my son, it really worked. He loved that. He loved that approach. He loved that he had teams and they were scoring points throughout the school year for different things. That really motivated him. But it is slightly different in our center, how we approach that versus what I talked about, which was more game-enhanced learning. But some people use those terms interchangeably, certainly. But thank you so much for your kind words and that very interesting insight into what's going on in Russia. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Anna, you are welcome to share with your Russian colleagues the link to the recording of this webinar, so they have an access and they will know more about Games to Teach and games developed by Castles.
And I see this other question. Sorry. To clarify, one more thing, when you select the games on our website, all of the levels do download, but you don't have to use the resources for your other levels.
Okay. So I see some comments in the chat, but not questions. So, dear participants, do we have any questions? So there is a comment from Zhibek. Thank you so much for sharing with such a useful and exciting presentation.
Well, thank you all. It's an honor to be with you.
So I was excited playing this game, and thank you so much, Stephanie and Christopher, for this nice presentation, amazing presentation. And I think all of us will be motivated to use the games in classroom. So, and dear participants, I would like to remind you that together with the post-webinar email, I will send you a link for the feedback form. Please spare a minute and complete it. I'm sure Stephanie and Christopher will be happy to read your comments. And also, if you have any questions, you can also post them in the feedback form, and then I will make sure that we will work out some answers for you, and I will send it to you. And my assistant Slava asks you to write your names and your emails, and please write to her privately in the chat, so we have information about the participants, so that Tatiana and Kasti can issue you certificates of participation in this webinar. So Stephanie and Christopher, you have done a great job. Students love playing games, asking every time to play, so thank you for sharing this information. I'm just reading comments from the participants.
Well, it was an honor to be with you all today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share the information. We'd be happy to follow up with any requests or further questions.
Okay, and if you have something else to share with us, we can schedule one more webinar. Our schedule of webinars fills up very quickly, but still we have some sports in summer and in autumn. So if you have something else exciting or useful that can be used by our teachers, please share with us.
Sounds great.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I would love to wish our participants good night, because it's, I think, 9 p.m. in Aktau and 10 p.m. in Astana and in other parts of Kazakhstan. And have a good day for you, Christopher and Stephanie.
Have a good day to you all as well. And thank you so much, Elena, for organizing everything.
Okay.
Yes, Elena, thank you so much. Thank you to the participants. Everybody have a good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.